Hey, Simon.
Good morning, Yaron. How are you?
I'm very all right. So we decided to
Good.
do this weird thing that we're doing right now. We don't know how it's going to develop, but we do have a clear
Oh,
intention. We thought, how can we talk about things that matter to us? Because both you're doing your work and need to, you want, not necessarily need, but to put videos online, and I need to do this. But somehow we spoke about how it's awkward and it's difficult
yes.
when we just sit
Yeah.
by ourselves. So we decided to do this chat. And we're going to talk about a lot of things that are relevant to both of us
Yeah.
and see where that leads. So,
Sounds good.
sounds good. So let's start. And let's see how it develops because who knows? First questions about sales.
Yes.
We spoke about us not being comfortable to do all these videos. A
Yeah.
lot of people really don't feel comfortable with sales.
No.
What's going on there?
I think reason number one is sales has a bad reputation. And I understand why, because lots of people in sales aren't salespeople as far as I'm concerned. They're very pushy. It's all about them, their products, making the sale, getting the commission. So I think that caricature of sales is pretty true. And obviously it's emphasized when you see it on television or on film. So anybody that's thinking of sales that's slightly introvert is going to, there's no way I'm going to be a salesperson. But also I look at it in terms of in a business, everybody is part of the sales process. And in particular, if you've got a business where one person in the main is answering the telephone, a receptionist say, all that money the business has spent on their website to drive inquirers in, go through that one person. Now, I know that people spend a lot of money on their websites and SEO and getting to the top of the tree, but they spend no time and no money on the person who's going to answer the phone. And that person is put on the spot. And often, as I said, they're not just a receptionist, they're doing administration, they're ordering stock, they're dealing with lots of other things, booking, travel. So the phone rings and it's either interrupted them, so that's annoying, or they're in a panic now because the customer on the end might ask them something technical. If it's a legal firm, they might want have a legal question, and that person is not prepared for that. So that receptionist is as much part of the sales process as everybody else and is part of the sales team. So let's give them some training. And I don't mean turning them into salespeople. I mean turning them into really good conversationalists so they can get engaged with the client and just find out a bit more about them as people. Why are they calling that firm? What made them call that firm? What exactly are they looking for? And you don't need to be able to answer any of their legal questions, but just get enough information to make a human connection and then pass them on in a human way to the next person in the chain, which is probably a lawyer. But if you've done that really well, that lawyer can then have a good conversation with the client about, oh, you spoke to our receptionist and said X, Y, Z. And suddenly the conversation's going, makes it much more natural, I think, if you can do that. So
Yeah.
I want to take away the caricature of sales and selling and make it human and conversational is what I'm trying to do.
I really like the idea of kind of expanding the idea of the sales to everyone. It's not just about the people who do sales. Like I remember businesses that I visited where you really feel that people understand what they're doing here. So they don't do sales. There is a garden center, funnily enough, when I lived in London, there was a garden center that every time I came there, the moment I paid and I left, I told them, you are the best example for what perfect customer service is from bottom to top.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about. It's not,
Yeah.
they don't do sales, but from everybody in that garden center that works there know exactly to give you the answers or direct you to the other person. The minute there are two people too much in the queue to pay, immediately there is a guy that will sort out the things. Really, really amazing. So I totally get that. Do you think that was it actually always that philosophy for you, or is it something that changed in recent years?
It's been my philosophy for a long time. I mean, when I was first in sales, which is 40 years ago, it was a very rigid, you do this, and you take, the idea was you led the client along a particular process. And it started to play on my mind about leading a client or influencing a client, or one of the phrases that used to be used in those days is when we were at a sales meeting was we'd tucked up the client, which meant we'd sold them a lot of products, and we were really proud of this. And I thought, actually, we shouldn't be proud of that because that customer is possibly now stuck with a lot of stock they don't actually need. That's not really good selling. And I didn't feel comfortable with that. It didn't sit with me properly. So it's, I don't like the words. And I look at sales books and they're covered in the words influence, lead, persuade. Now, if I was to persuade you to do something, you might go and do it, but you wouldn't be comfortable doing it, would you? Or you wouldn't be happy with the outcome. Whereas no, exactly. If I ask you what you want to do and you say, well, I'd really love to be doing this, and I help you do it, which is in fact what you do with your clients. Well, I'd love to be doing this, and you help them get there. But what you're doing is helping them get there where they want to be. Well, that is selling in my view, because what you've done is taken a client, listened to what they wanted, and help them go on that journey and get to the space they want to. That's as much selling as what I do. And just going back to your garden centre situation, customer service is an attitude, not a department. And their attitude all the way through that business means they're going to make sales. In fact, they're going to make sales because people want to buy from them. Yeah. That's a perfect sales process in my view. And it's because their attitude is right. So
I saw that you speak about listening quite a lot.
Yes.
In percentage, what would you say that as someone who does sales, what would be the percentage between listening and talking?
The salesperson should be 80% listening, 20% talking. And that talking is probably 90% asking questions of the client and only 10% giving information. Again, a lot of people think, this is what makes people uncomfortable with sales. They think they have to know a lot about the product. But you're a reasonably confident person. I guarantee I could put you in a department store this afternoon with minimal training on it doesn't matter what department you're working in, but because you're able to have a conversation with other human beings, you could find out a lot about what each customer wanted before it got technical, whether it was a sofa or a computer or a kettle, doesn't matter, does it? If they come in and you're happy, your attitude is positive and your attitude is, I love people, you can start a conversation, say, oh, what sort of kettle are you looking for? What's important to you? Why are you changing your kettle now? And just have a conversation with them. Yeah. Not get anywhere near the technical stuff because you like people.
How does this work when, because it's easy, someone like me as an example, I love what I do. So it's easy for me to talk about it and be positive about it. But, I'm assuming in 40 years of experience, you had experiences where you came to companies where people really hated their job. Is there hope in situations like this? Or how did you deal with these kind of situations? Or if it still happens?
Yeah, it does happen. Again, particularly if I'm looking at small businesses, I work a lot with professional businesses, so dental practices, legal practices, accountancy practices. And they're quite serious businesses in a lot of ways. So I think a lot of pressure gets put on certain members of the team to perform in a certain way. Whereas actually, if you look at those businesses in their truth, what are they? They're businesses surrounded by customers who are human beings with issues that need to be dealt with. They might be financial issues, accountancy, they might be legal issues, a law firm, they might be clinical issues, dentistry, but they are people, they're humans. And if the owner of that business is putting a lot of pressure, again, let's say the receptionist, to answer more calls more quickly or make more calls more quickly or hit a certain target, that person feels pressurized. Whereas if I can help the business look at it and say, okay, you're dealing with human beings, let's look at them as humans, let's find about them as people first. Those receptionists often start to enjoy their job more because suddenly they're looking at them not as patients, not as customers, but simply as people. Oh yeah, I can have a chat with them, that's fine, I can find out about them. And actually patients in a dental practice particularly will tell the receptionist everything, more than they want to know. And that is where the relationship begins, isn't it? That's where if I can find out a lot about that patient and I can pass that information on to the clinical team and say, look, I've got Simon Tucker in the room and he's quite nervous. He's shy about his teeth. He feels that people judge him. He's worried you might judge him if he's not cleaning his teeth properly. So just be gentle with him. If I've passed that information on properly to the clinical team, they can then treat me in that same way. So that receptionist suddenly starts to enjoy their job more when they realize it's not about targets, it's about people. So yeah, I think you can change it. I mean, if somebody really hates their job, they should probably move on.
I was, unfortunately, I had to do 3 years of army back where I come from. And
Right. Yeah.
my job in the army, it wasn't like I was doing an office job. My job was to recruit the people from reserve. So people like you and me, call them, hey, you have a month to come to the army. People didn't like me. But I remember, that's the thing. I knew that my clients, which are soldiers that come for a week or a month in the army, they were usually not very happy. So because I was working with the same, I had about 600 people, I think, that I was dealing constantly every time, the most boring, mundane work. But because I was dealing with the same people, I started to memorize their identity number, their address and things. So when they came to register, I started to write already all the things. And they were like, what? So, yeah, don't worry. And started that conversation, which breaks the ice, even in a situation like this, when somebody has to pull out of his family, his work and everything to come to the army for a week or 2 or 3 or 4. And it's exactly what you're talking about, I think. It's like, how can we make, on one hand, if I'm a boss, how can I make it more fun? On the other, the connection, ask about also the people and connect them, but also as an employee, how can I make it more fun for myself? And I really believe that we can find, I had to learn it on sales. How do I feel comfortable with this? And, there is, if you want to talk about that, actually, that people sell the process instead of the problem and the outcome. That's another big disease around sales. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, because it's, again, it's a human process, isn't it? Let's take a big company. I've worked with an engineering company for years, and they sell machines that are, $1 million each, and you're selling to a massive organization. So the person doing the buying may be 5, 6, 7 people. So I can have a great conversation with the guy on the shop floor who wants the machine, because the one he's got is useless. It's time consuming, it's hard to operate. So I can sell him a new machine that is automated and easy to set up and gives him more time for tea breaks. He's bought that like that. But the guy in the finance department or in the purchasing department is taking a much bigger risk by working with me, because they've never bought from me and my company before. They've been buying from a different supplier for years and had okay results. So to change supplier is a big personal risk to them, not just to the business. It's a personal risk, because if they buy from me now and I don't deliver, everybody's going to say, well, we told you to go back to the old supplier. So in that way, I've got to make a much stronger human connection with everybody in that business before I can make a sale and present my product. So I've got to understand the buyer's needs, the finance guy's needs, the owner of the business's needs, as well as the guy on the shop floor who actually wants the product anyway. So it's there are processes you can learn as a salesperson, but the fundamental core of it to me is treat people as people. Find out about everybody in that business first, about their needs, their wants. And I don't mean necessarily how many children they got, where they go on holiday. That might come out over years. But in the pure business sense, what do they need from me as a supplier to make this a good deal for them? And not just about the money, but actually, what else is there? There will be more. Will it be delivery times? Will it be reputation? Will it be their reputation? What is it? And I just got to get to know them as people, and it's not easy, because some of them won't give very much, and it takes time. The other thing is, a lot of sales books say, oh, I can make you $1 million in, 15 days. No, you can't. Sometimes it takes years to break down those barriers. So you have to be persistent, and I don't mean persistent in terms of, again, pushy or persuasive, but just take your time. And sometimes just call a client and say, how about we have a cup of coffee today, or chat on Zoom? Just find out, how's life? Not because you're there to sell something, but actually just make a human connection with them.
How do you help people that find this manipulative? Because there is a fine line there between this being natural and the way you speak about it, it's very natural, but it can drop sometimes for people to that place of like these fake smiles, and there is a fine line there.
Absolutely.
How do you help people with that? Because I fell into that trap sometimes. I was trying to be that, and I hated myself for doing this, and I wouldn't trust myself. So why would somebody else trust me? So how do we filter that, call it truth, into this process?
Well, I think, take your words there, Yaron, if you feel it's manipulative or you're feeling awkward about doing it, it's not genuine. when I'm saying, phone them and let's have a cup of coffee or a chat, there has to be a genuine reason for that. It may be that something just popped into your mind and you just phone them and say, look, hi, Yaron, we haven't spoken for ages. I'm generally in your area next week. Would love to have a cup of coffee with you, find out a bit more about what's going on in the business. So be honest.
Yeah.
There has to be a reason. Set yourself a reason. So say, what is the real reason I want to speak to this person? Now, if that person, as I said, is the finance guy in the business, and it might be there's no other, there's no project going on at this point, but you generally are in the area, you've got a couple of hours to spare, and you thought, I'll just follow up with him, see how he's doing.
Yeah.
Now, I said, if it is a genuine thing, I am genuinely interested in that person, it will come across as genuine. If it really is manipulative and you're thinking, this might be another way into the business, it will show that way. So if it's not a genuine, I'm in the area, I would love to get to know you a bit better, don't do it. So if it feels wrong to you, don't do it.
So here's a question. If you can put bullet points, if we have SMEs, people from SMEs or people from large companies that are listening to this, can you give the top 3 or 5 bullet points that people need to have in mind when they are doing the process of sales? And is it different to the size of business?
It's not different to the size of business. I said the only difference it makes in terms of size of business is the buyer or the buying process might involve a lot more people. So you have to treat them all as equals. You have to get to know all of them. Whereas if I'm selling to you as a sole trader, I know you're the customer, you're also going to make the buying decision, you've got the financial decision, and you've got the need for it. So there is only one person in me working with you, but if I'm working with a big organization, I might have to be involved with lots of people. But actually, again, the process is the same. Bullet point number one is be genuinely interested in them as a company. So do your research, find out as much as you possibly can, speak to as many people as you possibly can to find out about that business. Take a genuine interest in them as individuals. And as I said, I'm not talking about getting deeply personal with them because that will take years. I'm talking about them as individuals within that business. What are their issues in that business? What matters to them in the decisions they're going to make? Yeah. So make it personal to them and their area of the business. And as I said, ask just really good questions, open questions. How and what questions are really good. How do you feel about this? What difference would it make if we did this, etc. Avoid why, because that's a bit accusative, but how and what, who and where are great questions to lead with, and plan those questions. They might not always go, the conversation might not go everywhere you want, but if you practice asking those kind of questions, you'll end up being much more natural at it. And that's the other next bullet point is practice, practice, practice.
Yeah.
Just get into a situation with your friends or family, record it, play it back to yourself of asking really good questions and having a general conversation is what I would advise. And of course, get some training for those people because it's not fair. And I don't mean product training. I mean genuine, let's get human, let's have good conversations training. So.